Then a Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the Week 3 matchup between the Tennessee Vols and the Florida Gators. Two of your top powers in the SEC going head-to-head in Week 3. You got Tennessee. This is a team that's definitely got higher expectations this season in comparison to Florida. I mean, you consider the experience and the talent that Tennessee has this season, it totally makes sense. Florida's a team that's got a little bit of uncertainty, but still, they have shown promise. And for Florida being at home in this matchup, taking on a top 15 team in Tennessee, a massive opportunity here for the Gators. We'll be going over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today. Let's get started with your team trends. Tennessee being a team that beat Austin Peay last week 30-13, which we'll say this, I mean, Austin Peay is a team that you probably should be a bit more dominant against, especially if you're Tennessee, a team ranked in the top 10, especially at the time. But, I mean, that's kind of been the case for the first two games for Tennessee. Kind of slow starting, but in the second half, pull away and be dominant. And we saw that against Virginia. When Tennessee faced Virginia, kind of close at first, but ended up beating them 49-13. So, regardless, a 2-0 start for Tennessee, but that is something to keep in mind. You're going to have to start faster against Florida and against your tougher opponents down the road if you want any chance of being a big SEC contender. But for Florida, beat McNeese 49-7 last week. FCS opponent beat them like you should have, and obviously the one loss against Utah in Week 1, 24-11. And the Utes being one of the top teams in the Pac-12, definitely a challenging loss, but one that shouldn't. I mean, I think we kind of expected Utah to win that matchup, especially considering some of the uncertainty that Florida still faces. I mean, offensively, this team has got a few questionable areas. I mean, defensively, there's definitely a lot of potential on this team, but it's just the offense. And Graham Mertz and the receivers of this team are talented. It's just Graham Mertz is definitely a quarterback that wasn't too impressive when he was at Wisconsin. So it's about getting him to play at a high level to be able to compete against some of your bigger name teams in the SEC, and Tennessee is definitely one of them. Games be on Saturday, September 16th in Gainesville. So that is a thing for Florida, is this is a night game and this is in Gainesville. This is a home game for Florida. And I mean, Florida's got a really strong home field advantage as well. So if you're Tennessee heading into this matchup, yeah, this is not a game where you want to head into it sleepwalking and have a slow start, because Florida is definitely a team that can take advantage of that. But either way, Tennessee is still favored by 7.5. Over-under is 59.5. And the FBI is going with the Vols as well, 54%. So Vols are favored by a decent amount, as you would expect. The spread's actually going pretty heavy on Tennessee considering where the FPI is, but series history, Florida leads it by 10. Saw Tennessee won the last matchup, but Florida's won 4 out of the past 5. Stat comparison for this one, Tennessee so far this season, 5th in the nation in points per game, and Florida 117th. So there's that. There's your offense. I mean, offensively, this is a team that just hasn't been strong so far this season. I mean, the rushing game, whether that surprises you or not, definitely has not been very strong. Montrell Johnson, the lead rusher so far on the season, only 125 yards and a couple of touchdowns. But obviously against McNeese, this is a team that didn't play their starters the entire time. That does make a difference. But, I mean, even the passing game, this team is 15th in the country. Graham Mertz has thrown over 500 yards of offense so far, so not a bad start for him. I mean, once again, Graham Mertz is a quarterback that in the Big Ten, when he was with Wisconsin, was less than impressive. Wisconsin's offense was pretty bad the last couple of seasons, and so for Graham Mertz, not much optimism around him heading into this season, but so far, not too bad out of him. So we'll see if he can remain consistent. But defensively, Tennessee 17th in the country in points allowed. Florida's 56th. And overall, Tennessee, a really strong team against the pass. 7th in the country so far in pass yards allowed, 37th in rush yards allowed. Your recent matchups, Tennessee beat Austin Peay last week 30-13, and also beat Virginia 49-13. So first road test for Tennessee this season coming up here, and obviously against both Austin Peay and Virginia, kind of slow starts, but got it done in the end. And as for Florida, took care of McNeese no problem, 49-7, then lost to Utah in Week 1 on that Thursday night, 11-24. Utah being a team ranked in the top 15. Still one of the top teams in the country and in the Pac-12. Key points for this one, Tennessee 2-0. Joe Milton has shown promise so far. I mean, Hendon Hooker last season, Hendon Hooker and Joe Milton, I believe, came in at the same time. Hendon Hooker, obviously, from Virginia Tech, Joe Milton from Michigan. And Hendon Hooker really popped off last year, broke through, had an outstanding season, easily his best season of college ball. And Joe Milton, kind of in a similar situation, I feel like. So far, he's really shown potential. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised one bit if Joe Milton, once we get to the end of the season, kind of ends up around where Hendon Hooker was last year. Joe Milton has been promising so far, but this is really where we start to get to see whether or not he is for real and where this Tennessee team stands. I mean, Florida's a team that I think is very beatable for Tennessee. It's just going on the road. And obviously, Florida's a team that can really hang with anybody, even though they're probably not one of the better teams of the SEC this season. So, I mean, you consider that. Tennessee, this is a team that started slow but finished strong. Got to start faster in this one. And this is not a game to overlook either. I mean, Florida doesn't have a whole bunch of noise this season. They're currently 1-1 on the year. But this is not a game to sleepwalk into. I mean, you're going into the Swamp, a place that's going to be loud, a nighttime game. It's going to be a challenge, I think, for Tennessee going on the road here, and this is going to be a close game that could definitely go either way here. Florida, very dominant last week after their week 1 loss. Defensively, a strong team. Offensively, they've got upside. We've seen some potential. It's just about whether or not this team can remain consistent, and they only scored 11 points against Utah. Obviously scored 49 last week, but that was to an FCS team in McNeese. So we'll see what Florida can do against a generally really tough Tennessee defense. This is a big-time opportunity for the Gators here. I mean, being at home in this matchup, having the home field advantage, night game. I mean, this is a huge upset chance for Florida. I mean, you can get to 2-1 on the season here. I understand you lost in week 1, but a win over Tennessee in week 3, I mean, for Florida, that really brings a lot of optimism to this team that Florida can still be a pretty good team in this 2023 season. But for Tennessee, obviously the high expectations that they have, this definitely could set up as a bit of a trap game here. But with that, let's get to the prediction here for Tennessee and Florida coming up here in week 3. Once again, definitely a matchup that I could see going either way. But in the end, I'm going to be taking the Vols. 27-23 is my predicted final score. I see this being kind of a similar game. You remember that Oregon-Texas Tech matchup last weekend? I see this being kind of a similar one. Florida maybe has a decent touchdown lead in the third quarter, but Tennessee hangs in there and gets a big win in the end, 27-23. So the favorite does win in the end. But this is a matchup that, being favored by 7 for Tennessee, I'm pretty comfortable saying that Florida covers the spread. I think we see more of a moderate to a lower scoring matchup here. I'm definitely taking the under. I think Tennessee is the better team here for sure. It's just Florida being at home and a huge opportunity for them. I mean, Florida just really doesn't have much to lose right now. Already have taken a loss on the season. So I think Florida is definitely a team that can pull the upset here, but in the end, I'm going to be taking Tennessee 27-23. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup. I appreciate you guys all watching as always. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. Catch you on the next one.